Welcome, everybody. A very warm welcome from the Science for Africa Foundation, based in Nairobi, Kenya, and the Oxford University Pandemic Science Institute, of course, in Oxford, in the UK. We are ready to start our webinar today. We thank you all for joining us. We shall be expecting a few more people to join, and but I think we should just begin so that we don't end up losing a lot of time. I'm sure there are many questions for all of us. So welcome. Before we start, my name is Judy Omumbo, and I'm the head of programs at the Science for Africa Foundation, and will be one of the facilitators and panelists within this webinar. We shall introduce the other panelists as we go along, as they shall speak in this introductory session of the webinar. Just a little bit of background on the Science for Africa Foundation for literally 1 minute, because we did discuss this at the last webinar. This is for those who didn't attend. The SFA Foundation is a facilitator of the research ecosystem. Our work is mostly involved in designing programs that facilitate that ecosystem to make research a possibility in the ecosystem in Africa. So we design programs, we mobilize funding for them, and we manage those programs with the aim to support excellent science and innovation on the continent that really addresses Africa's developmental needs and prioritizes what African populations and governments identify as their development priorities. We have many objectives in common with the Pandemic Science Institute, the University of Oxford, and this is of advantage to our partnership, which you will get a brief introduction to, given by Alice Norton from the Oxford PSI.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Alice Norton. I'm one of the senior academics at the Pandemic Science Institute in Oxford, working with the Science Foundation for Africa on this initiative. So again, as you heard at the last webinar, we're a new institute within the University of Oxford, focusing on multidisciplinary research, hosted by the Nuffield Department of Medicine. Our vision is to help build a world where people and societies are better protected from infectious diseases, and with a mission to discover, create, and enable practical solutions to these infectious disease threats worldwide. And this Epsilon initiative, therefore, fits very centrally within that mandate, and we're delighted to be partnering with the SFA on it. If I can have the next slide, please. I'll just give a brief overview again, just a reminder of what the Epsilon, or the Epidemic Science Leadership and Innovation Networks, are about, and what our joint vision for what they might achieve is. So obviously we have an investment to put into improving and creating world-class epidemic and pandemic sciences research across Africa, with a real focus on interaction with policymakers as well for impact, and the importance within this of building dignified and sustainable careers for those researchers across the continent. So as you know, we're looking to fund African-led consortia with really bold and innovative research programs based on this, to strengthen the communities of practice for long-term collaboration. And also a real focus, this work, and one that I'm particularly interested in, is the building of extensive opportunities for policy engagement around pandemic sciences within and external to Africa as well. So I'm sure you've seen in the core guidance, but some key points on how these consortia will be funded, and importantly the amount. So there's up to $4 million worth of funding available, plus additional budget for specific activities for consortia to form to address this vision and this mission. The conditional awards we're aiming to announce by the end of October in 2024, with the aim that these consortia really get going in early 2025 with our activities. These are long duration awards, which is a real opportunity to build the research in this area, with program duration expected to be between 5 and 6 years. And Judy is about to hand over to Judy again, who will tell you about the thematic areas. And the idea is that the consortia will focus their activities around one of these, but with a real encouragement of interdisciplinary work. So over to you, Judy.
So therefore, there are 7 areas that we are asking for creative ideas on. Next slide, quickly, please. And as you've seen in the core guidelines and within the core announcements, these will be in the area of vaccinology, or early stage vaccine research, and for epidemic and pandemic prone infections, virology, genotype and phenotype, clinical research and clinical trials, public health policy research, and looking at climate change and biodiversity with the focus on pandemic prevention. This will be looking at things like the role of zoonosis in crossover disease. Areas of data assembly and data analytics for assessments of threats and for mitigation. And then aspects of social behavior as pandemics affect population. That we really would like to see some research being done in the area of social sciences. So just with that summary, we're very keen to just go quickly to the questions in this area. I know there are one or two questions in the chat around the sound. I hope that this has been addressed. If you are not able to hear, kindly let us know if you can't hear the speaker speaking. But we'd like to just quickly go into the questions. We've divided them into broad areas because these are questions we've received from you since the last webinar, and we will be addressing according to the categories. So first, I'm going to address the questions around the thematic areas. The first one is somebody would like to know how many bids an institution could join if they're applying on different research areas in each bid. However, as the lead applicant, even though there's no cap on the number of applications, you may have as many applications as you wish, we encourage that you manage your effort to producing one good application, because scientific quality, scientific excellence is our first criterion for selecting. The second question is, will potential clinical trials fit the remit? Clinical trials do indeed fit the remit in the thematic area of public health and health systems strengthening. Which is more important, research or research capacity strengthening? Capacity strengthening is a central element of both, and we will consider both. But the foremost is the quality of research, its relevance, how well it aligns with the theory of change and the outcomes that we. So proposals should aim to undertake research for further scientific understanding of and enhancing readiness and resilience to pandemics and epidemics in Africa. Will all thematic areas be considered equally? So we welcome research ideas for all thematic areas, but first and foremost, as I've said before, the quality, the relevance, and the innovation of the research proposals. We'll be looking as well as elements of diversity in terms of thematic selection. Other areas of diversity, we'll consider studies in different regions of the continent, but those will be secondary qualifications. First, we'll be looking at the research excellence and the quality of the research that's proposed. Can applications consider more than one thematic areas? Yes, this is encouraged. The PI needs to consider one main thematic area, but they could have work programs which address questions in the other thematic areas. So interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary research is encouraged. Is there a preference for basic or implementation research? Again, we're looking at the quality, but there's no preference for basic or implementation research. We will be looking at research right through the value chain of research. Will applications that focus only on epidemics and not pandemics be considered? This is actually a program about pandemic preparedness. We have epidemic and pandemic potential. These can be considered. Right, so Susan Gishoga, who is based at the SFA, is also the one who will be answering all your questions when you write in. She is part of our program team, and she'll be talking to you about the application and how you can form your consortia. Over to you, Susan.
Thank you very much. Welcome, participants, and we look forward to supporting you. This last webinar for the Epsilon call. We received a number of questions about consortia, and we'll be striving to answer them here. So one of the questions is, can we add private companies in the proposal as partner institutions? Private companies here mean for profits. companies, and this is possible. And we encourage you to look at the definition of partner institution in the call guideline. But in essence, we do not exclude profit institutions, for-profit institutions. And then is there a possibility that one co-applicant in another project can be a applicant in a different project? Yes, this is possible. There's no cap to the number of times a co-applicant can engage in different applications, as well as, again, you are living up to the definition of a partner institution in that you are delivering a specific call work package, and if granted, then you'll be receiving a grant and you'll be managing a sub-grant on behalf of the main grantee. So then once you've been selected and proposed collaborators and partners in our preliminary application, we have the flexibility of changing partners at the full application stage. So you can sense that these questions have not been altered in any way. They are verbatim from the emails that you send in, not altered in any way. But the essence is that we get a question and the response to this particular one is that no, we do not encourage that you select partners at this point and then change them at the full application stage. The main reason being that already we have done the review on the preliminary application based on the current partners and their merits. So changing them at the full application stage means that would have to restart the process of selection review again, and we have timelines. So please put very careful thought about the partners that you select. So I'll take this opportunity also to take you through the application form and some of the sticky points, just to ensure that we are all joined up. And the purpose of this is to ensure that you submit eligible application. Probably just to go back on the application page, the only tip that I give here was to ensure that you put in the number of months in field number 1. And then the tip for the second section was to ensure that you see that the word limits are just at the bottom of the page, and the bottom of the page, so that it says words to limit 1500, and as you continue typing, then it tells you how many words you're typing, up to a maximum of 1500. So the publications section, please put in summary information. If necessary, the full application will provide more space for detailed applications, but look at the guidance notes, ensure that they are relevant and from the last 5 years, and then look at the citation guidance so that you're able to meet the threshold. Then consortia details. The tip here is to ensure that you give the correct, or you align your institutions to the core applicants. So for example, you can see in my page, my institutions are Science for Africa Foundations, Pandemic Sciences Institute, and Digital Science, Kenya, UK, and United States. When I come to the core applicants, I have one of my co-applicants is from Digital Science, which is one of the partners, and then the other one is from Pandemic Science Institute. Although you can't see it here, but you might see it in the PDF, which is one of my partners. So should I choose another institution? I don't want to put any institution there that may look like we may have a bias towards it or not. Then the person from that institution will be included in the core application. Then the other tip is just to make sure that you only have one lead institution. Do not have several lead institutions. So for this particular one, my lead institution had already been selected and that is Science for Africa Foundation. So I will not put the same status for the other two applications, for the other two institutions, sorry. So there can only be one leader institution, and then the other institutions will be partner. So I'm just saying, please not put all these as lead institutions, because or all of them as partner institution, because that might be a bit confusing to the reviewer. The collaborating partners, you can put as many as possible, up to a word limit of 350. You can see the word limit is at the bottom of the text box. And then all the other pages, I think, are straightforward. I don't think I want to go through the entire application unless there's need to. Just to confirm that all the word limits are at the bottom again, and you can go back and forth in every upwards or downwards in the sections. There's no on-screen validation to prevent you from moving from one section until you have finished the other. So it's there are no barriers to what section you want to fill before the other. And then these are the budgets. Just make sure that you have confirmed the number of months so that it can open for you and you can see the word limits for each of the sections. Yeah, so my final tips are to just note that the system closes East African time. That's our closing time zone. Just to let you know, please remember not to use your own local time zone. Refer to the East Africa time zone. And then the system closes automatically. I'll not be around the system when it closes. So should you send me any email, I may not see that. And anyway, all the online applications are supposed to be submitted through the system unless there's a challenge with the system, but which you can let me know beforehand. And then once you apply, ensure that you get a system-generated submission confirmation email, just to confirm that this is the application is on our side. That's your validation email. And then on the application itself, the validation page should have shown you, shows all the outstanding sections that you should require before you submit. Just check on it once before you click on submit. And then I've already shown you the word limits. For those having problems registering to the system, just make sure that you scroll to the bottom of your privacy statement. And by saying scroll, I mean read. Scroll as you read, because the privacy statements are actually beneficial to you and they give you a glimpse of how we handle both your information and your application. So scroll down. If you cannot see the accept button, put your website size to 100%. That's full screen. And you may be able to scroll down and accept the privacy statements, which means then you're registered. I think that's it for now. I'll hand over to my colleague, Anna. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you so much, Susan, and good afternoon, everyone. I will be taking you through the budget section, but hopefully a lot of the questions have been answered. So there were quite a number of questions based on the different categories, and we tried to cluster them together. So I'm hoping as we go through the questions, we will respond to most of the queries that people had in the previous webinar and any new questions that have come in. So one of the questions was, can the budget include a portion of the salary for the lead applicant? Yes, this is possible. You should actually indicate the time allocation, and it is expected that they will allocate time to the grant as it's being implemented. So this is expected to be included at a certain percentage? Can the application include budget for postgraduate, such as indicated there? Yes. But there's a clear process of checking on the relevance of whatever cost you're including based on your application. For infrastructure and capital cost, this is allowed to be included based on the research again that you're going to be undertaking. But there's a caveat, especially for the infrastructure, when it comes to calculation of the indirect. This on the guidelines we have provided full disclosure on infrastructure costs and how they should be included as you calculate the indirect costs. There's a limit to what you can include. Okay, so in the call application, we did give guidelines on personnel cost, the guidelines. So as you do the application, you have got to think through the kind of personnel and resources you require. So we are not limiting you to saying these are the only ones you can include, but there has to be a good rationale. And as Susan has shown on the application, once you put in your personnel cost, you must give a narrative of why you're including the different category of staff that you have included. So yes, it's up to you to determine who you need, whether data managers, grant accountants, M&E, the resources that you require should be included in there. Are institutional operating costs eligible? Yes, we have provided these in the call guideline, and we have also provided the limit for indirect costs and provided a rate of 10%. And I know there was a question on one area showing our cost guideline policy showing 15%, and this call guideline being specific to 10%. And we request you stick to what is on the call guideline, because that's the maximum we can allow on this particular application. And there are also guidelines on how you calculate indirects where you have infrastructure and capital expenditure. And then the next question, is it mandatory to include the additional budgetary elements? Yes, it is. First of all, this is additional funding, and also should be able to strengthen your application, as these areas, the catalyst grants, research fellowship and research and innovation fellowships, and then Epsilon's exchange awards are expected to strengthen the ecosystem within which you will be implementing the grants. So they are required to be included, but they are additional to the 4 million that we have provided. On co-funding, it's not a requirement, but again, it's if there's some institutional support that you're getting that would strengthen application, it's good to disclose this within the application. And you can provide any letter of support to show what kind of contribution you're getting from other sources with regard to this specific application. Would be good to have as part of it. How will funding flow from SFA Foundation to each consortium? Well, this is early. There's a mechanism, but the reason why we have a lead institution is because it's expected the lead institution take responsibility over how funds flow to the rest of the partner organization, and we'll get there as we get close to the full application process. But for now, we fund the lead institution, and then the lead institution works with the partner organization. So it's expected the lead institution has the capabilities for funds management, accountability, and ability to report on behalf of the consortium. However, if circumstances are that the lead institution has some circumstances under which they're not able to undertake that mandate, then we do discuss that at later stages. I think we answered this in the process, but at this point of the application, we don't expect you to specifically say how much will be going to the partner organization. As we do expect it still at the early stages. What we expect is an overall budget for the whole consortium. You can indicate and break down the different positions. You can indicate, as per the budget guidelines, what are the areas that you will be funding as per the cost categories that we have provided. But we don't expect to see partner organization budgets at this stage. At later stage, yes, we will ask for that information. I think the second one I had already responded to that we stick to the 10% that is within this call budget guidelines. Yeah, so these are the budget headings that we have provided in the grant management system that Susan took you through. If you go through, it's very clear on what we have provided guidelines on what should go to what areas, and in case there are any areas of clarification that you need, you can let us know, please. Okay, so I think I have mentioned about the additional funding. There was a question on whether these additional grants are part of the 4 million. No, they are not. These are over and above the 4 million, and there are 3 areas that you must include in the application. And one is the catalyst grant, and the amount is indicated there, total of what it should be. And there should be a narrative as to how the rationale of how you plan on undertaking the catalyst grants. And then there's research and fellowship, innovation fellowship, and the amount is up to 600K. And again, we have given guidelines as to what should go into the research and innovation fellowship. And then the last one is the Epsilon Exchange Awards. Again, there are guidelines to what should be included. And I saw a question on whether I think students' stipends should be included as part of personnel or fellowship costs. We don't really have a cost category called fellowship. And therefore, if they're students, they should fall within either of these additional funding, but not on really personnel. And I'm done for now, and we'll be responding to any questions on the chat as we go along. Thank you. And I think back to you, Judy or Susan.
Hi, can you hear me?
Jean Nachega.
Can you hear me?
Hi, Jean. Yes, I can, Jean.
Yes, I have
nice
a quick question. The research window does not allow a attachment for bibliography, table, and Fuga.
Okay. Susan, could you answer that question, please?
Okay. So thank you so much for that question. At this point, the preliminary call, we do not have that, do not need those details, the bibliography and the references. So please use your 500 word limit to specifically focus on the research program. And should you be invited into the full program, then that will be necessary to provide, but not at this stage. So don't worry.
So we should not add citation at this stage.
Not if you can, and unless you can add it in a way that you can still use the 500 word limit and express your project in the most concise way possible. So I would not say it's an absolute no. If you can add, but if you can't, please, it's not going to be part of what's going to exclude you from moving forward. So the 500 word limits are so that there's succinct information about the research program.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. And thank you, Susan. There's a question that's been asked in the chat quite a lot about the stage of career stage of the principal investigator. So what I'd like to say is that we haven't said there's a specific career stage, but just remember that this is actually quite a lot of money to handle. It's a large consortium and it requires quite a lot of experience to manage that. So it may be to your advantage to choose a guy who has done this sort of thing before. Because, as you know, the reviewers are probably going to look at and see whether this is actually possible. This amount of work, is it possible for the lead investigator to lead? But having said that, new ideas often come from the blue. And if you're an early career researcher and there's something very compelling, some research work that is innovative, there is no harm in responding, because we shall also be assessing your team, not so much the individuals, but we're very, very keen also to look at innovative ideas. So in that situation, please go ahead and apply. But otherwise, I would encourage you to really get a PI who has done a lot of these sorts of research programs. There's still a lot of questions around how much money collaborating institutions can get. We have put a cap of 10%. This is very much capacity development grant, and we want to make sure that the PI institution is also capacitated to have better systems in place, and so on and so forth. So whether your collaborating institution is in Africa or it's in areas outside the continent, the cap is 10%. Hannah, do you have any questions that are coming up a lot on the budget side that we can address?
Yeah, I think I had one that has just skipped my mind as you were talking. So let me look for it. But there was a good question on the budget. I will request if I can answer it once I see it again. But there was quite a number.
Okay. Just let me know when you do.
Actually, yeah. So it was I think it was the 10% limit was for non-African partners. And we put that limit so that we ensure a lot of the research is taking place within the continent. But there was a question on whether you can include salaries for non-African partners, and what kind of costs you can include within that 10%. The 10% is to help the institution support you as the application. That's why the amount is limited. But if you're sending someone to study into a non-African institution, their costs are not included in that 10%. Their costs should come from the main grant. I think there was a question asking whether that 10% includes the stipends for the students and the fellowship cost for this for the students who are doing the transfer program. No, 10% is for the institution that is the non-African institution that is collaborating and working with you. That's the funding for them to be able to support you.
That's right, and thank you, Hannah. Just to say, because I'm seeing the question asked quite often, we shall share the answers to the questions and also a recording of this video. It will be placed on our website. We won't be sending it to individual emails. There's also quite a common question: are there specific academic qualifications required for the lead applicant? No, they just need to be a researcher in one of the fields of the thematic call. They need to be qualified to lead that particular research topic that is being proposed. This is another one on budgets. Perhaps, Hannah, we could go back to you again. Can we include part of salaries? I can see you're typing, but you can present it in plenary. Can we include part of salaries for more than 5 persons, the lead applicant, 2 postdocs, and 2?
Yes, that's the one I was responding
the one
to.
you've
Yes,
just responded to.
Yeah. So 5 is just a guideline, but there has to be a very clear rationale for every line you include on the budget. There has to be a rationale on why the role is important and how they will support the program within the 5 years. So you're open. We just had provided some guideline.
There's a question from S.A. Kindombe. And I wonder, Philippa, if you're on the call, whether you could translate it for us. Can you see it?
Oui, j'ai répondu en français.
How do you put together the partners on a consortium, I think? You've responded to that already.
Ouais, j'ai répondu. Sinon, vous pouvez envoyer un mail à epsilon@scienceforafrica.foundation et je vous répondrai en français.
Thank you. You've responded in French, and that's fine. Abu Bakr Hoza is asking Susan, are the support letters required for both lead and partner institutions or only the lead institution? Could you answer that, please?
Okay. So the support letters are only required at this stage for the lead applicant. Should the lead applicant move forward to the full application, then the letters from the partner institutions will be required at that stage. So I've also seen some other questions about publications, almost the same template. So the publications right now are only needed for the lead applicants. The publications for the partners will be required in the full application stage. Thank you.
So there's a question from an anonymous attendee. Maybe I should ask Alice to. So people are asking whether specific diseases are eligible. And there's a question from an anonymous attendee whether tuberculosis is eligible. So what we are saying is that this call focuses primarily on pandemic diseases or diseases of pandemic potential, pandemic and epidemic potential. So I would encourage you to look at the disease you're looking at and your context and see whether it fits within that definition. Okay, so you'll maximize your chances of successful proposal if you focus on a disease or an epidemic disease that has pandemic potential. There's a question about the team strength. Another anonymous attendee is asking, how are you going to evaluate that while there is not provision for co-applicant to upload their CVs? Remember, this is a pre-proposal stage. When you're called to do a final proposal, we would like to hear about all your co-applicants, and there will be an opportunity for their information to be uploaded there. Putting together a consortium is a lot of work, so one would need to know what their chances are before, and this is why we're doing the pre-proposal stage. Jennifer Nyakinya is asking, has that been answered? Is it permissible? Thank you, Jenny, I've seen your message. Is it permissible for individuals with dual institutional affiliations to participate in a consortium? Yes.
The question is about the consortia. I understand they are partner institutions, but do you have any specifications about the geographical location of these partners, both in Africa and outside Africa?
Sorry, Carol, we're breaking up. Could you say that again?
It's not very clear on that. So
Carol, we don't have any restrictions on where your partners are. If you're selecting African partners, they need to be domiciled in Africa. If you have a partner who's outside the continent, you just need to know where they are.
So there's no restriction on the geographical location?
There's no restriction on geographical location.
Okay,
thank you. Simbarashe?
Hi. So I was asking, what is, in terms of the two deadlines that have been listed, is the deadline for 31st January and the other later deadline. What is expected? How much is expected from us in the initial deadline as opposed to the final deadline? Yeah,
that's a good question, but I think it's clear in the guidelines. Your initial one is more like an expression of interest. It doesn't require as much detail as the final one. So if you just go through the call guidelines, and once you enter the system, the grant management system, it will tell you what information needs to be uploaded for the one that's the 31st of January deadline. Okay.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Shifea.
Yes.
All right,
how are
please
you?
go ahead and ask the question. I'm very well, thank you.
Yeah. Yes, my question is, does international NGO charity organization eligible to collaborate with universities from both Africa and the diaspora to participate in this program? That is my question.
Okay. Susan, would you like to answer that question?
Sorry, I was typing a response. I didn't get it clearly. Could you
Oh,
please
so
repeat?
Simbarasha is asking whether an international NGO collaborating with scientists in Africa in the diaspora, are they eligible to be a partner
Yes.
institution?
Yes, that's possible, because we have clearly defined the partner institution as institutions that are delivering a specific work package and will receive budgets, and they can be from any geographical zone. The only the only criteria we have said is that if you are based in an geographical zone outside Africa, you will only get 10% of budget. So you can be a partner institution. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. That is my question. I've understood you well. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Emmanuel Ibezim.
Thank you for the presentation. I want to ask, for a particular institution, either partner institution or the main institution, do you have a limit to the number of researchers in the team? And the second question is about the budget. The budget, should it be presented according to the various partnering institutions? In other words, each institution will have her own budget embedded in the main budget.
Okay, so I'll answer the first part, and Hannah, you'll answer the second part on the budget. According to the number of researchers in your team, that is not limited. What is limited is the amount of money that you get for the consortium. So it would be advisable to make sure that you don't have more researchers than you can afford within that budget. Hannah, could you answer the budget question, please?
So yes, for the number for these initial stage, we don't require a budget breakdown by partner organization. We need just the overall budget. If we proceed to the next stage, we will send a template and other information that we require for that, for the full detailed budget.
Okay, while Amy's finding his way around the screen, are you okay?
Yeah.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. My name is Eme Neonagiza. I would like to ask, I just have an edtech company. I just want to know if edtech company is a way to collaborate with you in this institution. Can it be included in this institution to get these grants?
So it may be, I think the definitions of possible collaborating institutions are within the guidelines. Since we don't know what the institution does, is it an NGO or, as long as they're an African institution, they should be eligible.
Yeah, my edtech company is a private company. It is not an NGO. I just want to know if it can be eligible.
So private NGOs can be eligible, but one needs to be very careful that the PI is not funding their own company. Okay. Remember that all of these, will go through a very rigorous process of due diligence. And of course, we'll be looking at who are the directors of that company and where that money is going. Obiageli? So Obiageli. I do apologize for my East African pronunciations of some names, and thank you for correcting me when you speak. Please go ahead, Obiageli.
Are you hearing me?
I'm hearing you.
Okay, thank you. So my question is to know specifically the number of applications you will take at this stage. Maybe we're competing for 4 positions or 10 positions or what?
So at this early stage, with the expression of interest, we're accepting everybody's application, and we shall see. What the initial group is just looking at the ones that in this initial stage, we're just looking at the ones that have potential.
So as many as has potential is okay.
No, we know. We will decide after reviewing the applications that come in, the numbers that we will ask to send in a full application. We are not the reviewers here, so our job is just to say these are the applications, and the review committee will sit down and decide how many they're going to ask to send in a full application.
Okay, thank you.
But just remember that the final awards will only be 4, and if you work backwards, then it will tell you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for presentation. I have just minor question. For the consortium having more than 5 institutions and having a research or thematic area, do they going to work in a separately or they work on the same research in a collaborative way in different countries? Thank you.
So we'd like you to consider collaborative research questions where there's an overall research question, but one of the consortium partners can work within a different thematic stream to address overall research question of the consortia, and that's why we're encouraging consortia and not asking you to develop different research programs headed by different PIs with different questions.
All right, thank you, Chair. I just want to know if it's possible to consider an expert individual without necessarily considering the institution to be part of the research team.
So, David, the funding will be sent to an institution. So the individual needs to be based at some institution.
Okay, so there is no way you can incorporate an expert without necessarily being part of.
Unfortunately, this call is not one of those. It's not an actual research fellowship in that way. But this call is going to consortia. So you build a consortia with a leading institution where the PI will be based. Okay. Thanks for your question. All right. Kamal Eddin Benalal.
Okay, so I have actually 3 questions. The first is I was in the parasitology department and I moved to virology. So which means that I have almost all my publication concerns parasitology. And now I want to apply for something related to arboviruses. Can this influence my selection? This is my first question. The second, can I use the publication of the new lab in my application? I mean, I will add all the publications of the lab to mine, just to get more chance to be selected. And the last one concerns the Catalyst grant. Can I support the startup with this grant? Thank you for your answers.
Your questions, Kamal. There's no problem for you having changed from virology to parasitology. Just put down your publications. The other thing is your publications of the new lab, only if your name are on those publications. So it's not that you can take publications that were on the lab before. And then the third question,
it's about Catalyst grant. Can I support the startup with this budget?
Could you say again? Can you support who with that budget?
A startup.
A startup.
Yes.
No, these are grants that are targeted to individuals. So it's like for one of the members of your research team to meet with a partner institution to discuss, for example, the Catalyst grants, to discuss a new research project, or if they want to go for it, they're short term and they're limited amounts. So it's just to begin conversations around different research areas that are really to encourage collaboration and also for building up skills. For example, one of your research team will want to go and use an instrument in a lab somewhere else within Africa or overseas or outside the continent, and you can use those grants for those.
Okay. So thank you very much. Okay.
You're welcome. Jules Bashi, please go ahead. David Doku.
Yes, good afternoon.
Afternoon, David.
I am a little bit confused. My understanding, reading through the call, suggests that There are many other things that potential PIs could be doing to meet the conceptual framework that is provided, building the capacity of scientists to be able to address epidemic. But it looks as if our discussion is like it has to be targeted research at some diseases of epidemic importance. Because if you look at the 7 priority areas, there are things like social science, there are things like building capacity, there are things like many other things that could be done. Is it something that the founders are also considering, or they want disease kind of thing?
So you're right there. You know, our discussion is actually guided by the questions that have been asked. And if you're a social scientist, this is the first social scientist question that we have received. And as you can see from the guidelines, this is eligible as well. They don't have to be research on disease. It could be from health systems. It could be social science questions. It could be issues around climate change and pandemic sciences, biodiversity. All those kinds of things are eligible.
Thank you very much.
Hello, thank you very much for your presentation. Can you hear me? Hello?
I can hear you nice and clearly. Please go ahead.
Thank you. My question
Yes, I can hear you,
is,
Ignacio. Please go ahead.
my question is, there is a governmental institution that has a satellite institution doing research, and that this institution depends on the governmental institution. So these would be 2 institutions, or it will be only 1 institution for the partner institution, as a partner institution?
So Yuan, it actually depends on the program of work. Are they each doing different things? If the governance of the satellite institution is at the governmental one, then it will just be 1 institution, and it will be the governmental institution.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Could you have Muhid Yusuf?
Hi, thanks. I've got 2 questions regarding the budget. The first one, and I can see from the core guidelines, it says that you can have at least 5 FTE. Is that per institution or per the whole consortia? That's the first question. The second question regarding the budget itself, do you have any guidelines for the breaking of the budget? So what percentage should go to the personnel, what percentage should go to the materials, what percentage should go to equipment, and so on? Or is it up to the PI to decide how much to spend in each category? Thank you.
Okay, so we'll have Hannah. Hannah, could you answer that question, please?
At this point, we are not expecting you to break down the budget by partner institutions. So you could put in the position you feel at the lead institution you require and can be replicated into different partner organizations at this stage. Once we proceed to the full application, then we will require further more details by partner organization. I hope that has responded to the first question.
Sorry, just to clarify before we move to the second question. So I understand that from terms of budget, we don't need to have more details in terms of partners. But I was talking about the personnel here, because when I read through the call guidelines, it says the personnel budget is expected to include minimum of senior scientific investigator, 2 senior postdocs, and so on, which at least 5 FTE in total. What is not clear if that is per the whole consortia, or we can have each institution can have 5 FTE, which could make at least 30 FTE for the whole consortia. I'm talking about positions rather than budgeting here.
So I think I can't be specific to tell you that each consortium or each partner organization must have 5. You would have to be clear on what each partner organization is doing for you to determine how much personnel they require. That we leave at your discretion to actually take lead on.
Okay, clear. Thanks.
Okay. So on
This-
the second question, I think we do have our process of reviewing and challenging a budget challenge process. So what we expect to see is, as you put in your activities into the application, then we expect a similar process to follow on how you allocate resources to the different activities you're expecting to do. So our responsibility is to actually check whether there is a proper rationale in terms of that process of ensuring everything is budgeted for. So I may not tell you, for example, a social science grant application could have more resources required for personnel rather than for infrastructure and for other areas required. So if I told you there is a guideline of how much percentage should go to personnel or how much should go, I would be misleading you because you are all doing different applications that require different resources at different levels for each budget category. However, there has to be clear rationale. You have to think through whether you're being, how do I put this, whether you've actually allocated cost as per what you have said you would undertake. So our budget challenge is what will really determine the allowability of what you have put in, whether it's properly allocated. But I don't have a tip that this is the percentage it should be. It should have your finance people that you're working with should actually guide you on what a good budget should look like before it's submitted. But we don't have percentages for each of those categories. It's more of you being able to think through the budget as per the application you're submitting.
We can hear you. Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah. So, very good afternoon to you.
Afternoon.
I wanted to ask, for instance, if a delayed applicant is coming from a federal institution, is it permissible? That's question number one. Question number two, if the delayed applicant is currently on a research course in a foreign university, can he still act as a lead applicant on the application?
Okay. So the lead applicant from a federal institution, that is permissible. The lead country is in a foreign institution. They need to make sure that they, for this course and for this research work, that they're based at an institution in Africa.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The funding will go to the African institution.
Yeah, but even if the lead applicant is an African and is based in an African institution, but is currently on a course in a foreign university. Is that correct?
They're in a course. They're in a course, and when are they planning to come back? I mean, they need to obviously spend some significant time at their home institution in Africa as well. But if they're just doing a short course, that is acceptable.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, but just remember that these will not be awarded until sometime in 2025. The review process will.
Okay,
yes.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah.
All right. 2 quick questions from me.
Who's speaking?
This is Stephen Kabama.
Stephen, okay.
Yes, 2 quick questions. One, do collaborating institutions have to provide letters of support? And then the second, can we include more collaborating institutions, more than 6, since they will not be receiving budget support?
Collaborating institutions, Stephen, is the ones that are receiving financial support. So those are the only ones you list as your collaborating institutions. You may collaborate with whoever you want if you're not giving them money. And then at this stage, we don't need letters of support from the collaborating institutions. We just need to name them, but we will need to give those letters of support when they do the full application.
All right, thank you.
All right. Jules, are you ready to speak now? Jules Bashi?
I'm ready to speak. Hi, everybody. I don't know if you understand me.
Yes, I can hear.
Okay. Thank you very much for the great presentations and all explanations. For me, just remain one question. It's about the indirect cost. The indirect cost will be applied only to lead institutions for 10%, or this will also be applied to partners and institutions into the budget.
Okay, I'll ask Emma to answer that question. Emma, kindly answer the question.
Thank you for the question. The limit is applicable to all budget receiving institutions who will submit the budget. So it's 10% even for the partners, should they need to apply for those costs. Thank you.
All right, David, I think that's your question, Joseph. That should have answered that. David Roba.
This is David from Burkina Faso. The communication is that very clear around here. So I have a question about the publications. I mean, how the publications are going to fit within the 500 words you are requiring. I haven't searched the answer very well.
Susan, David has more publications than that limit. Could you answer that question, please?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what is the format?
Yes. So Susan will give you a response.
Yes. So the 1,500 is actually just the limit that we want for now, just because you remember you're giving your ORCID number in section 5. Yes. So we can actually download and check for more publications there. So we do not want you to duplicate your ORCID list in section 6. So that's why the guidance says it's up to 20 of your most recent and significant peer-reviewed publications. And then we are asking that you ensure that at least 5 of these are from the last 5 years. And then you can give citation in full, but if the number of others are very many, just write et al. So give us the ones that you want us to see before we go to the ORCID. So that's what I would advise. Just give your best shot within the 1,500 words limit, and then give us your correct ORCID number, and that's going to be sorted that way. So number 5 and number 6 are complementary.
See, that's great. Okay, thank you very much.
Hello. Please ask your question. Hello, please go ahead.
Good afternoon. I'm going to go back to the question of pandemic versus epidemic. We're interested in diseases and the climate impact on diseases, which aren't generally pandemic in the definition of global, but certainly are local epidemics and potentially regional epidemics, or even transboundary epidemics, so regional pandemics. And I've kind of heard the terms being used a little bit interchangeably. And I want to be very clear on whether diseases such as diarrheal diseases or cholera, for example, would qualify as a potential epidemic/pandemic consideration in this call. Thank you.
Yes, so that would definitely be a difficult one. But I think we are really focusing on those that are, diseases that, like COVID, really push health systems to a limit. I think for things like diarrheal diseases and cholera, there are other opportunities for funding. This one is really looking for diseases that have potential to scuttle health systems response across different countries. Okay. So it really depends on what you're looking at. Sometimes one may use an epidemic disease, because we also said this is, within the call, we're looking at epidemic diseases that do have a potential to now overflow and become pandemics. And if you can make a clear justification why this is important, you can go ahead and send an application.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I don't want to just debate the issue here.
You're focusing on something that we already have solutions for. That's difficult.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Neville. You're welcome. Solomon Berhanu.
Okay. My name is Solomon Branu from Ethiopia. So I want to know about the formation of the consortia. Is that possible only to include an institution from a single African country, or is that a must to entertain more than 3 and above 3?
We don't have a restriction on the geographic location of the institutions. So if you want to include institutions in Ethiopia, that is fine as well. Hamidou Maiga?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, you're clear now.
Right, thank you. So one of my questions is, when we're trying to add co-applicants, there's an error message popping up and saying that this contact already exists in the system, but it has either been marked or as inactive or already participating on this application. Please perform another search. After trying several times, still the same. So we're not able to add a co-applicant. How can we fix it?
Okay, so that may be an individual problem. I think the best thing is, could you send an email to Epsilon?
I did.
At Science.
Contact us. I sent the email already.
Today? Okay, so it will be responded in that context.
Yeah,
And
but I
Susan
also wanted to ask: have you exceeded the limits of the number of your consortium?
No.
Okay, so we will look at that. But
Yeah.
ideally, when you refresh your page, you should be able to move ahead. But we can talk offline about that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Ayodeji or Olayemi, please go ahead.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Afternoon.
My question concerns the budget. There's 1.2 million allowed for the additional budget. But I also read that you could ask for indirect costs for this additional budget. If you do that, you will end up with more than 1.2 million. Is this acceptable? For instance, if your total budget, your core budget, and your additional budget, because of indirect costs on the additional budget, reach something like 5.2, above 5.2 million. Is this acceptable?
Thank you for the question, and I see the calculations. I think the indirect costs were envisioned to be under the 4 million. So if you're going to do even 10% of the 1.125, then they should be under the other award. I don't know if you get what I mean.
Yes, but does this mean we do not ask for indirect costs for the additional budget so that we don't exceed the total budget? I imagine there's a cap for the total budget, and this appears because we think we can ask for an indirect cost for the additional budget. But if this is not allowed, then it's okay. I just wanted to find out so that I don't make a mistake asking for more than the total budget.
Yeah. Should your institution require indirect costs for the additional grants, I think have them as part of the 4 million. And then we will assess and review that budget as it were and see if we will need to make any other changes on those grants regarding the indirect costs.
Okay, so for now, I don't include any indirect costs on the additional budget.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. I just had a very quick question coming back to this idea about pandemic versus epidemic that was asked. And you used COVID as an example of something that really overloaded the healthcare system. But COVID was kind of an unknown pathogen. It was like disease X. And are we supposed to be focusing on known threats, or is it equally open to trying detecting threats from unknown pathogens?
I think overall what we're trying to focus on is really building the resilience, not so much on what the disease is. So, there's nothing in the guidelines that say that these are the diseases that we're interested in. It's about making sure that health systems and processes and governments, researchers are ready to take on challenges that are emerging. They may be known, they may be a little bit known about them, and they may be unknown.
Thank you. That answers my question. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Simon. Joseph, I think, had we already done Joseph? Joseph, do you have another question? Yes, you're clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, I just joined lately because of my country network problem in Ethiopia. Some regions, there is some network restriction due to that. But I heard this consortium yesterday, so I wanted to know more about the organization, and I was trying to register on your system yesterday through Science for Africa on Agaske Grants Management System. But during registration, it comes difficult for on my system on terms and conditions to scroll down and to accept these terms and conditions. So is there any system so you can help me to register on your system and able to see any calls, or if I have any project which I want to apply for in your organization? Thank you.
So Mohammed, I don't know, do you have specific days when your internet connection is bigger, stronger, or can you travel somewhere else close by where you get a better network?
Currently, right now I'm getting a strong network, but on your systems, it was difficult to access the terms and conditions to register my name as well as my email on your system. So is there any means you can help me if I send my email to add you, or you can send me email and I'll try to join from the system? Thank you.
Okay, Susan, is there any way we can help?
Yeah. So Mohammed, it's not possible to join the register by proxy, which means that someone cannot register for someone else. But you should be able. Have you put your page resolution to 100%? The three dots on the. So we can take this offline. Probably we can. I can send a link and you can check. Otherwise, it's very easy to register on the system. Probably there's something that needs to be tweaked.
That was I thought so. So can I send my email right now on the question box or the chat? My email?
No, write to epsilon@science for Africa.foundation. The help desk written on the indicated on the web page.
Okay. I will try. Thank you.
Thank you. Matlodi, please go ahead, unmute and speak.
Hello, actually, this is Matlodi's colleague. I registered last time and I did not receive the link for the last webinar. Even this one, I did not receive any invitation for attending. So each time I attend in his office. So I was wondering if there's a problem or what can I do to rectify that?
Oh, thank you for bringing that to our attention, and we apologize for that. I think you're the only person who has received this complaint. I'm not sure what happened. Not sure. I don't know if anybody on my team can give some insight. Susan, your camera's on.
Yes. So I wondered, have you started an application for the Epsilon?
I haven't started the application yet because I'm not the lead applicant. But I'm worried because I don't get invites for the webinars. It means somehow there's a disconnect.
Okay, so we only sent through the system. We only sent to the lead applicants, or the people who had registered as lead applicants on the system. Otherwise, the most frequent way of getting information from Science for Africa Foundation is joining our newsletter, and probably I'll put the link on the chat box for anybody who is in this webinar who wants to join our newsletter. You can join, and that's our most efficient and effective way of getting updates, all updates from the Science for Africa Foundation. I hope that helps.
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Bye.
So thank you. I think we have answered all the questions up, the opportunity. We have a few more minutes. If you have additional questions, you may raise your hand. What I'd like to say as we're thinking about that we are here to help you. We're very, very keen to get the best proposals, and we'll give you enough time to put your proposals together. The help desk is open. If you're not hearing from us, please just try and just keep on trying to get in touch. I think so far we've managed to respond to everyone's queries, and do ask any of the questions that you have. So I'd like to ask my team if there are any questions related to the budgets, Hannah, that are still remained unanswered. You could answer them in plenary, particularly the ones that have been asked frequently.
No, Judy, I think I'll just encourage the applicants to really read through the budget guidelines. They're very clear on the cost categories, and also on the calculation of the indirect. Just in case you're struggling on how to do that, and just point out also we've provided for you to include annual inflationary costs at this preliminary stage. So it's good for you to think through the budget process so that you also submit a budget that really supports your proposal. And maybe to just clarify that Emma did respond to the question on the indirects for the additional fellowships, the 3 categories. I can clarify that you are allowed to add on a 10% on that to the grant application, and it's included in the core guidelines.
Yeah, and I think that's very helpful. And so I know that Alice and Philippa, and maybe Jenny and Edward, have been furiously responding to questions. Are there any questions that have risen multiple times that we can just highlight and answer for plenary as well? So I'd like to hand over to our partner, the partners at the Pandemic Science Institute in Oxford, Alice Norton, who makes some closing remarks for us. And thank you very much from the Science for Africa Foundation for attending the webinar today.
Thank you, Judy, and thank you to all of the contributors from the SFA, in particular Judy, Hannah, and Susan, and all the participants for fantastic questions. I'll just add on that one of the reasons that the diseases are not listed within the core guidance is for us to hear from you why they might be important within this field. So that would be keen to see that within the prelims. This is the last webinar that we're holding, because the application deadline is now on the 31st of January at 5 p.m. East Africa time. So we're really looking forward to seeing all your preliminary applications coming in advance of that deadline. The recording of this meeting will be made available, as will a frequently asked questions document, and the team are obviously still available to respond to queries, as they've clearly stated. Once those prelims come in, there will then be expert review by expert review pool and a selection committee. And at that stage, after that transparent and rigorous process, full applications will then be invited later in the year, around April. So good luck with the prelims, and thanks very much for joining us. And thanks again to the SFA team for moderating the discussion so well today. Bye, everyone.